The Colombian president got the old Trump backhand and deserved every bit of it because he's refusing or was refusing to accept his own citizens back. Now he's reversed course immediately. And this is who he is, Gustavo Petro. You can see he's the president of Colombia all the way through 2026. And here's what he was posting on X. We translated it. Trump was saying, we're rounding up people. We know Tom Homan and the rest of our government is now springing into action to deport illegal immigrants and aliens who should not be in this country back to their home countries. And Colombia was one of them. So the Colombian president said the U.S. cannot treat Colombian migrants as criminals. Okay, well, they're in our country illegally. So how about we do? He says, I deny the entry of American planes carrying Colombian migrants into our territory. The United States must establish a protocol for the dignified treatment of migrants before we receive them. That was from him specifically. Trump said, oh, okay, well, here's my response to you. He posted on Truth, he said, I was just informed that 2 repatriation flights from the United States with a large number of illegal criminals were not allowed to land in Colombia. This order was given by Colombia's socialist president, Gustavo Petro, who is already very unpopular amongst his people. Petro's denial of these flights has jeopardized the national security and public safety of the United States. So I, President Trump, have directed my administration to immediately take the following urgent and decisive retaliatory measures. Emergency: 25% tariffs on all goods coming into the United States. In 1 week, the tariffs will be raised to 50%. A travel ban and immediate visa revocations on the Colombian government officials and all allies and supporters. Visa sanctions on all party members, family members, and supporters of the Colombian government. Enhanced customs and border protection inspections of all Colombian nationals and cargo on national security grounds, and IEEPA treasury, banking, and financial sanctions to be fully imposed. These measures are just the beginning. We will not allow the Colombian government to violate its legal obligations with regard to the acceptance and return of the criminals they forced into the United States. Not playing around, right? And the rest of the government sprung into action on this. Marco Rubio, new Secretary of State, jumped in and said, all right, President Trump has made it clear that under his administration, America will no longer be lied to nor taken advantage of. It is the responsibility of each nation to take back their citizens who are illegally present in the United States in a serious and expeditious manner. Colombian President Petro had authorized flights and provided all needed authorizations and then canceled his authorization when the planes were in the air. As demonstrated by today's actions, we are unwavering in our commitment to end illegal immigration and bolster America's border security. And Rubio came out and authorized all these visa restrictions, like immediately, okay? Immediately. The State Department will continue to enforce and prioritize America first. Following Petro's refusal to accept 2 repatriation flights he previously authorized, Secretary Rubio immediately ordered a suspension of visa issuance at the U.S. Embassy Bogota consular section. Secretary Rubio is now authorizing travel sanctions on individuals and their families who were responsible for the interference of U.S. repatriation flight operations. Measures will continue until Colombia meets its obligations to accept the return of its own citizens. America will not back down when it comes to defending its national interests. Signed by your friend Marco Rubio. Now, what happened in the immediate aftermath of this is a little bit of a reversal of course. So the president threw a hissy fit from Colombia and just went on this ranting screed. And Trump does this to people. Like, this guy just goes nuts. Okay, look at this entire post about all this, just going bananas. He says, Trump, I don't even like traveling to the U.S., okay? It's boring. But I confess there are some commendable things, and going like this. I like going to black neighborhoods of Washington, where I saw an entire fight in the U.S. Capitol between blacks and Latinos with barricades, which seems like nonsense to me because they should join together, whatever. I like Walt Whitman, Paul Simon, Noam Chomsky. I like some other people who were murdered with the electric chair. I don't like your oil, Trump, because of your greed. blah, blah, blah. So if you know anyone who's stubborn, that's me. You can try to carry out a coup with our economic strength and your arrogance like I did, but I will die in my law. I resisted torture and I'll resist you. You will kill me, but I will survive in my... This is the president of Colombia. You will kill me, but I will survive in my people, which is before yours in the Americas. You don't like our freedom? Okay. Well, I don't shake hands with white slavers. You shake hands with white libertarian heirs of Lincoln and the black and the white farm boys and blah, blah, blah. Overthrow me, Trump. And the Americas and humanity will respond like, guys, go nuts. Okay, like nuts. You will never rule us. The warrior who rode our lands shouting freedom is called Bolivar. From today on, Colombia is open to the entire world with open arms. We are builders of freedom, life, and humanity. And I'm going to tariff you. I am informed that you impose a 50% tariff on our labor, and so I tariff you 50% back. Let our people plant corn that was discovered in Colombia and feed the world. All right, so just like, all right, man, are you okay? Like, somebody needs to talk to that dude. Like, take his phone away from him because he's gone mental. What the hell's he talking about over there? So he continues on. And then we get an immediate response. All right. So after that little psychopath screed, he turns around. And he's like, you know what? Actually, how about I send my presidential airplane to go pick them up so that we'll pay for it. Okay. We're going to pay for it. So yeah. So then the president, Gustavo Petro, reposted this message from Presidencia Colombia. It said, attention, President Gustavo has now dispatched the presidential airplane for the return with dignity of the people assembled and deported from America. All right. The presidential airplane is now going to go pick them up. Remember when Trump said that they were going to pay for it? They're paying for it. They sent their friggin' presidential airplane to get criminals out of our country. Incredible. You can see here, this is their official communication from Bogota. The government of Colombia confirms their participation in the CELAC which will convene on the 30th of January. This is going to allow us to fix the problems in the region with our members. And now the government of Colombia, under the direction of Gustavo, has requested the presidential airplane to facilitate the return of the people who have been detained. And they're going to come back tomorrow, prepared for deportation. This is going to make sure that they return with dignity. All right. With dignity. Fine. Send the we don't care. Send your presidential airplane. Send all your Congress people's airplane. We don't care. Come pick them up. Get them out. Thank you for abiding by our requests. And so there's now a ruckus happening internally in Colombia, which has been fun because this guy, Fico Gutierrez, he responded. Okay. This guy must be a politician or somebody over there. He's got 1 million followers. He responded to the president. He says, I propose that we send people to Washington to ensure that the United States government that's headed by Trump understands that Petro doesn't represent us. The United States has been an ally of ours for over 100 years during different administrations. Colombia is one of the great allies there, from Medellin to others. The United States is punishing Petro, his government, and his party allies. They're leading us to leap into the void without a parachute. The arrogance of this guy, Petro, is causing an entire country to be punished today with tariff measures. All we got to do is close the visa processes. We cannot allow Petro to lead us into a state of isolation like the one achieved by his friends and accomplices in Cuba and Venezuela. And then the president back there, Gustavo, says, I can't believe you. I'm not surprised that you kneel, but I prefer that you kneel before the mothers of the victims of the dump. Just like lost it. So turns out he is now going to be acquiescing to everything that the president wants. And there were others here responding on this. Let me pull up just the latest tweets from just recently from Caroline Levitt. She says, the government of Colombia has agreed to all of President Trump's terms. From the press secretary, Caroline Levitt, says the government of Colombia has agreed to all of President Trump's terms, including the unrestricted acceptance of all illegal aliens from Colombia returned from the United States, including on U.S. military aircraft, without limitation or delay. Based on this agreement, the Colombia fully drafted tariffs that they were about to dump on them, and the sanctions will be held in reserve. and not signed unless Colombia fails to honor this agreement. The visa sanctions issued by the State Department and enhanced inspections from Customs and Border Protection will remain in effect until the first plane load of Colombian deportees is successfully returned. Today's events make clear to the world that America is respected again. President Trump will continue to fiercely protect our nation's sovereignty, and he expects all other nations of the world to fully cooperate in accepting the deportation of their citizens illegally present in the United States. Signed by Caroline Leavitt, Press Secretary of the United States, and President Trump. So we also saw Mike Johnson is warning everybody, look, Colombia and all nations should be on notice. Congress is fully prepared to pass sanctions and other measures against those that do not fully cooperate or follow through on requirements to accept their citizens who are illegally in the United States. President Trump is putting America first, just like he said he would, and Congress will implement policies that reinforce his agenda. Thank you, Mike Johnson, for that one. Now, Trump was also out popping off international while he was down at Mar-a-Lago after a round of golf, chilling with Marco Rubio, solving problems like this.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. Rubio and President Trump down in Mar-a-Lago, just taking care of business, resolving things like it ain't nothing. Here's Homeland. They said, we're on it, Mr. President. Soon as Trump posted the truth, it's done. All right. The whole thing was done basically instantly. Stephen Miller also posted the same thing. And you know how we know it's official is because even Gustavo Petro reposted. Talking about bending the knee, huh? Yeah, okay. Colombian president retweeted the post about this. It indicates that he endorses the Trump administration, saying this about the deal. Hard to see this as anything but a full capitulation by the Colombian president after he started it. Take your citizens back. Don't play games like this. And this was a good lesson, okay? Let this lesson be learned to everybody else who is not going to be accepting their citizens who are in our country illegally. There will be repercussions for non-compliance. All right, so fun story. Colombia getting dealt with appropriately. The Chicago mayor getting pretty nervous now that the raids are happening in his sanctuary city. Mayor Brandon Johnson is getting the wrath of Tom Homan and the America First administration, saying, we've received reports of ICE enforcement activity in Chicago today. Please know that Chicago police were not involved. We didn't do anything about rounding up the criminals that are living in our city and wrecking it. My team and I are working closely with city officials. It's important that everyone understands their rights. You can access the Know Your Rights resource guide at chicago.gov, saying, there have been confirmed reports of ICE enforcement in Chicago. Per city code, police were not involved in this because it's a sanctuary city. My team and I are in close communication, and it's imperative that you know your rights and follow the guidance. And of course, they post it in Spanish too. So Mayor Brandon Johnson doing everything he can to not work with the government to solve this very important problem that even people in Chicago and Illinois and elsewhere want solved. You can see, though, that Dr. Phil joined in on the raids, saying just in the first arrest in Chicago with Tom Homan was a convicted offender and an internet predator from Thailand. Has to go back. Here is this excerpt from Dr. Phil, who was even out there joining the raids.
What's your name?
Seda. Seda what? You have a person that name.
Sam.
Seda Sam?
Yes.
Where are you from?
Where I was born or where I'm from?
You born? You been deported before from the United States?
No.
Never been deported?
I've been in the system before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What have you been charged with
Charged by?
before?
I'm not a sinner. I'm charged by lawyer.
Yeah. Are you a citizen?
My mom said that.
Your mother's a citizen,
Yes.
but you're not?
Nope.
But you've never been deported before?
You Dr. Phil. You look like Dr. Phil.
Yeah? How do you know me?
No, I seen Dr. Phil, on TV.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is an example of sanctuary cities, right? We got an illegal alien convicted of sex crimes involving children. and he's walking the streets of Chicago. Again, the downfall, the problem with the sanctuary city, that people like us walking the street rather than law enforcement working with federal agents. This is what we're dealing with.
Yeah. You've been charged with sex crimes with children? Not really? Never been deported?
Let's take him in and process him, lock him up.
Not really is when you are asked if you're like thirsty. No, not really. Hungry right now? You want? No, I'm good. I think I'm good. You're either charged or you're not. So interesting that guy was allowed to be out, and whether it was a conviction or there was an open case or a warrant, or he was just convicted and released. Who knows what the actual story is on his charges, but going back, he's not going to be here anymore because he has now been detained. We also saw, here was another conversation between Dr. Phil and Tom Homan.
Wonder where they go, who picks them up. This is who picks them up. This is who lures them out on the internet, and they disappear or they get raped and their life's changed forever. And he shouldn't even be here, but he's doing this. But they don't raise their hand and say, hey, there's somebody that doesn't even have the right to be here that's preying upon our children, and they don't tell you about it.
Exactly. And this governor, Governor Pritzker, and the mayor, they want to vilify the men with ICE. ICE saved children today. ICE saved children today. And it makes me angry. Governor Pritzker the other day went on the internet, social media, saying ICE was attacking our elementary school. He's scaring children. He's scaring the neighborhood, putting fear in the community. We're doing the exact opposite. We're saving children. Every sexual predator we arrest means more safe children. So God bless the men with ICE. If you've seen today, we're not sweeping neighborhoods. This is a target enforcement operation. We spend a lot of time investigating these people. We know exactly who we're looking for. So it's a target enforcement operation. It's the right thing to do.
Well, let's talk about how methodical this was, because you guys had this monster on the list, and they've been sitting on this guy for 2 or 3 days to try to get where he was and his pattern, and you were actually able to ping his cell phone and get him on the move so he could be picked up on the street rather than if he got to his dwelling, wherever that is, and got behind a closed door, then he could have sat there and you didn't have the right to go in and get him if he sits behind that door, right?
Not without a criminal arrest warrant, but that's exactly the point. He could have been arrested at a county jail, in the safety and security county jail, by one officer.
Right.
But we spent hundreds of hours to investigate him, try to find out where he is, and we did find him. It takes a whole team for officer safety to arrest him. Right. It's not efficient. We could arrest many more criminals if you let us into jail. It's a lot harder to find these guys out in the public. These guys don't want to be found. They're in the wind. It takes a lot of investigative work to find them. Let us into jail. Don't let them hit the street. It saves officers time. It's safer for the community. It's safer for the alien. It's safer for the officer. But spending hundreds of hours of investigation to find this guy when we could have got him in 5 minutes at the Cook County Jail.
Okay, tell me.
Okay, so yeah, very interesting. So would need to know more about what the actual charges were for that guy and whether they were open or closed, whether he was convicted and then, didn't comply with some sort of terms of his conviction, whatever. It doesn't really matter what the charges are. He is illegal and in the country. And so you would expect the local cops to coordinate with the federal cops so that they could identify him and remove him from the country. But it sounds like what's happening is, as a general rule, Chicago is identifying non-citizens who are committing crimes, and even probably before they're convicted, they're releasing them, right? They're releasing them out on bond or on their own recognizance, and they're going free. And so ICE is saying, why don't you just hold them? Okay, ICE has a thing called an ICE detainer. Okay, so once local cops identify these people, you can see people will get an ICE hold, right? ICE will say, don't move that person out of that facility or transport them around. Some states abide by that. Some jails abide by that. And you'll actually find immigration attorneys and criminal defense attorneys who will try to find the jails that won't impose ICE holds on people so that people can go serve their limited amount of jail time without getting picked up and deported out of the country. So the reason why we're kind of listening in on this is to see what are they prioritizing behind the scenes. Obviously, sanctuary cities that might be releasing dangerous criminals, even pre-trial, right, before you're even convicted. You would say, well, that person should not be released because they're not a citizen, right? They don't have the same ramifications of noncompliance. If you're an undocumented person, one of the things that they use to keep you in compliance when you're a citizen, if you don't comply with the law, they issue an arrest warrant, right? And your license gets suspended. Everything stops working. And there are safeguards to keep you in compliance. If you're a non-documented person, if you're an illegal alien, those things don't matter to you as much as a citizen. So ICE has an extra interest in the local cops to go in and detain you, but they're obviously not doing that here. So Tom Homan and Dr. Phil are out there not playing around and rounding up folks who are in violation of the law. 101st Airborne Division is now also going to be integrating it at the border and working alongside DHS, which is wild. Says this from the 101st Airborne Division, which is the official Twitter page for them, for the 101st Airborne Division. There's this press release that came out of Fort Campbell. Fort Campbell soldiers departed today en route to the U.S. southern border in support of U.S. Northern Command's mission to protect the territorial integrity of the United States. Soldiers assigned to the 716th Military Police Battalion, 101st Airborne Division, will integrate with military forces already along the border and work together with DHS and CBP. Prior to their departure, they've conducted a patching ceremony. Screaming Eagle patch is part of ongoing Army structure. They said, "We're trained and ready to support this important mission," said Lieutenant Colonel Philip Mason. "Our soldiers are committed to protecting all Americans and supporting our civilian partners in defending the territorial integrity of the United States. We're also proud to mobilize for this mission wearing the Screaming Eagle patch, which has historical significance to the 7-6. So, from the 101st Airborne Division, they're also heading out there. And here was Tom Homan from inside the vehicle.
Where are we heading, Tom?
Chicago, Illinois, we want to arrest public safety threats. We got all the government approach. We got US Marshals, we got FBI, we got ATF, we got DEA, we got ICE, we got HSI, we got them all here. So the president's plan of all of government, that political alien crime in this city.
All right, so they're going after him. So Tom Homan and the rest of them rocking and rolling.